Good evening, everybody. And good evening, Helen. You're one of the everybody. Good evening, everybody. Lovely, as ever, to have so many people on board this evening. It's always nice when we got lots of participants on our webinars. And this evening, this is only the second in our autumn series, which is very nice. And the second being done by Helen, the lovely Helen, who also did the first. This is your part two, isn't it?
It is.
Part two of Big Cats, which is rather exciting. Please do make use of our chat facility. You'll see chat at the bottom of the screen and also our Q&A. There'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. And Helen will be delighted to answer questions. I might answer a question, but only if it's an easy one. You can only ask me easy questions. Hey, it's rather nice to be traveling again, isn't it? Wouldn't you say?
Very nice.
I'm just back from Finland, having been looking at bears, and I know that one or two of the people who were on board this evening have also been looking at bears in Finland. But that's rather nice, all very easy, travelling through our airports. The most complicated part of the whole operation was filling in the passenger locator form, which is about the most complex form there could possibly have been invented. The most complex
it goes on.
Command. Anyway, the most ridiculous form. And of course, the other cool thing is that Brett is getting away. So, you know, with Africa having opened up, that's rather good, isn't it? So Brett's managing to get out and lead lots of lovely photographic trips out in Zambia.
And Emma, yeah.
So, and Emma, yeah.
And we got Sri Lanka going next month, Maldives, yeah, all sorts. India's opening up.
It's all happening, yeah. Yeah, India's opening up. And it's really good. We need a couple more of the South American countries to open up, of course. We need Ecuador to open up, and Peru and places like that, but it's only a matter of time. Where do you want to go? If you could go one place, where would it be?
Patagonia.
Oh, okay. Can you get there at the moment? Probably.
Yeah.
Depends how creative you are. Yeah,
absolutely.
Hey, look, I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to mute myself, and I am going to hand over to you.
Okay.
And I'll come back when you're finished. But I'll be here listening. In the event of any disasters, I shall be on hand.
And I shall try not to go on as long as I did on Tuesday night. I got slightly carried away, I think.
Right. As long as it's interesting, nobody minds.
Well, I can't tell if people are sleeping. That's the thing.
I'll be here drinking my bottle of beer, but you'll be pleased to know that it's a 0% Pilsner.
Ah, look at that. Professional to the last.
Well, yeah. Hey, anyway, look, I'll shut up and I'll mute myself. I'll disappear. Really looking forward to hearing this, Helen. It'll be great. Discover the world's big cats with the wonderful Helen Bryon. Over to you.
Thank you. All right, well, you've got the teetotal me tonight. Yeah, thank you very much once again for joining us. I know that quite a few of you that were with us on Tuesday evening have come back for more. As I say, that's quite surprising considering how long I went on for. So apologies for that. So on Tuesday, we were looking at the world's big cats, a great, great love of mine. And we covered the gorgeous and most wanted, in my case, of the big cats. We started off by looking at puma. And we were looking at puma tracking in the beautiful Torres del Paine National Park in Chile, in Patagonia. And this is a cat that when you go out and you experience time with this cat, you're doing it at eye level, generally on foot. And that's what makes these trips so, so exciting. We also covered the mighty jaguar. So found from Costa Rica all the way down through Guyana, through Colombia, all destinations where we can send you. But our top of the list in terms of getting particularly good sightings amongst a wealth of other wonderful creatures such as caiman and capybara. Then we took you to central Brazil and to the wonderful Pantanal region. The third cat that I covered, they're spotted, well, they're not so spotted, they're rosettes. If jaguars are leopards on steroids, we left the steroided one in South America and we crossed the Atlantic, and our top tip for finding leopard was to head straight to Zambia's South Luangwa Valley. Hell, why not? Zambia's North Luangwa Valley as well, but essentially the Luangwa Valley. So the leopards, they're nocturnal cousins, but never one to pass up an opportunity. So often found in this wonderful arboreal shot, but just as happy on the ground as well. And we then very briefly touched on where my love of big cats has come from. And this is my younger self, all 6 years that I was at the time, holding that leopard cub as if that lion cub as if my life depended on it. And essentially we had the absolute privilege of looking, it was a very sad story, but we looked after a number of orphaned cubs at home for a couple of days, and that was it. I was smitten. Couple that with a little bit of Elsa and Born Free, and for me, it was a done deal. I'm a lion girl, and I just love these wonderful, wonderful creatures. They don't just sleep. They do sleep for a long time, admittedly, but to me, they are the most beautiful. Now, every cat has something different. You know, the power of the jaguar, the ability to walk past a puma on foot, that thrill that you get when you have seen a leopard, which is a thrill that I don't think you get with any other cat because of their generally elusive nature. But lions for me are still pretty much my number one. Just that beauty, that magnificence, the joy of just watching these creatures bonding, being the only social cat when they haven't seen each other for a day or two, and the head rubbing and the belly rubbing and the tails down one another's backs, and then the licking and the reinforcing of those social bonds. I can watch this all day. And I've been known to on many an occasion. I'm incredibly privileged to have spent a lot of time with lions, and I will never, ever tire of them. Now, being the only social cat, that gives them the ability to hunt together. And you may have heard me say on numerous occasions that if I could get inside the head of two creatures in particular, one would be a lioness when she's hunting or teaching her cubs how to hunt, and the second would be inside a spotted hyena's head, simply because their whole society just absolutely, oh God, it just, I'm obsessed by them. I just think they are incredible creatures. But tell me how, when a lioness with 3 or 4 or 5 of her other family members are creating a horseshoe bend and then going at exactly the same time for the same target animal, how are they communicating that? It fascinates me, and I would love to know more. But obviously, being the largest cat in Africa, being a social cat, so being able to work together and to bring down prey, in this case, buffalo, they can bring down elephants. There are in Botswana and in Zimbabwe specialist prides that now hunt elephant because they are numerous there. So these cats adapt to their surroundings. And I think it's just, you know, that power that they have. And yet, as we talked about on Tuesday, the vulnerability that you see in their faces at times, I find it utterly captivating. Whew, I'm just going to look at her for a minute. She is marvelous. So undeniably, these cats are top of the food chain. However, they have one rival, and really one rival only at adulthood, and that is the rather marvelous spotted hyena. If you've ever been fortunate enough to come across encounters between the two species, oh, it's thrilling stuff. Very, very exciting indeed. Hyenas are big old animals. They're much, much bigger when you see them up against a lion than you think they are. They're incredibly tall with those lovely, wonderful, long forelegs that they've got. So it's big cats that we're here to talk about, not spotted hyenas. So as following on from Tuesday, cats are found throughout, or lions are found throughout sub-Saharan Africa. So if we had to pinpoint one particular place to go looking for them and to spend quality time with them, if the gods are on your side, it's got to be, hasn't it? Of course it's going to be. I'm about to burst into the national anthem. I'm so full of pride. Not only am I talking about lions, I'm also talking about the country in which I had the great fortune to grow up. It's got to be Botswana, Botswana the Great. So Botswana, it has to be because of the quintessential Kalahari black-maned lion. Just look at him. Crikey, that's just look at him. That's all I can say. But Botswana is also, of course, known for the incredible Okavango Delta. And it's the delta that provides the backdrop for some truly wonderful sightings and also photographic opportunities. So the delta, with the ebb and flow of the floodwaters, but being able to watch lions from boats, from vehicles, or even on foot, charging through the water like this, at rest, not just necessarily when they're active, but also with those date palms at the back there, the wonderful grasslands, the colours, the textures, the ability that you have to visit a number of different habitats. It's all savanna pretty much, but riverine to thicket to the waters of the delta. It just means that you can get some wonderful, wonderful experiences in a variety of habitats. And that makes for great photography as well. Look at this guy, crikey, he's got some stories to tell, hasn't he? And he still looks relatively young. He's not particularly beaten up at this stage, but it's just those faces, once again, just so full of expression. So if you're going to go to Botswana, Botswana is very much a year-round destination. Where there is water, there is wildlife. But to highlight two of our most popular trips, and I'm going to touch on a third as well, we would be sending you out to Botswana over what is their dry season from June through to October. Now, as the season progresses, it gets progressively hotter and it gets progressively drier. So you might be talking mid-20s during the day in June through to mid-30s, sometimes more by the time you get through to October as your average daily temperatures. June in Botswana at night is going to be cold. It's not chilly, it's going to be cold. So you want to be dressed for the elements. But what we do is we do wonderful, very, very comfortable mobile camping. And that's why we offer our Best of Botswana trip between the dry months of June to October. Now, these tents are supremely comfortable. You have a double bed, you have two twin beds, you have lighting, they have mosquito nets. You will also have an ensuite bathroom with bucket shower. You can order hot or cold water as you please. And what we do is we basically take you from Maun in the northwestern part of Botswana, which is the access point to the delta. And if you look at my mouse, if you can see it, there you can see the delta itself. So we take you from Maun and we take you across in an easterly direction, ending up in Chobe, which is another gem of Botswana, which is only 90 minutes away from Vic Falls. So that's a combination that is very, very popular. You've got the Best of Botswana, which is our 9 nights, tented camping, 3 nights in Moremi, 3 nights in Kwai, 3 nights in Chobe, and then finally a night at a lovely lodge in Chobe overlooking the river. And of course it's overlooking the river where you've got what Chobe is known for, the Park of the Elephants. But there's much more there. Being on the water and being in a boat, as you will be on your last afternoon, you can glide past the backsides of swimming elephants, of hippos, of reed frogs, wonderful bird life, and hopefully, of course, some cats as well. And all 3 cats are found here. Our second trip that I'm going to talk about also goes out in the dry months, and that goes out in June, and that's led by our very own Dan Free, our general manager, and his great mate already. He is a second to none guide. He is quite astounding at what he does, and he's a very, very nice chap to go with it as well. So Dan and Disho will work together for a mobile camping element through Moremi and Kwai, and then you will end up actually in the delta itself, in the southeastern part of the delta, at a camp called Ma Denari, or Mrs. Denari, as it would be in English. And from here, you'll be able to stay in a very, very comfortable lodge and go out by boat if water levels allow. This is a Mokoro safari. And when you're in a Mokoro and you've got crocs sliding underneath you and you're right next to wonderfully coloured snakes in the reeds and so on, it's a totally different experience. It's quite phenomenal. And again, wonderful bird life in addition to all of the big cats that you might possibly be seeing. So the Best of Botswana and the Okavango Under Canvas, those are the two trips that offer an element of mobile camping along with lodge, and they will go between June and October, or Dan and Disho's will go in October only. Just a quick message here about another trip that we offer, which goes in March and April, which is the end of the rainy season in Botswana. We've got to get that Kalahari black maned lion in again. I don't know how many images I can put in of this chap, but I just think they're absolutely incredible. Look at the size of that paw as it's padding along that road, but also look at the colour of that road. We've come to a much, much drier area here. And our Botswana's Rare Mammals trip, which operates in March and April, group size of 6, so it's lovely and small, and it will take you to the central Kalahari region. And the central Kalahari Game Reserve covers almost 10% of Botswana. It is vast. Now, you don't get the same density of game here, but in my experience, the sightings are superb. The rare mammals we're talking about will be things like brown hyena, honey badger, polecat potentially, if we're lucky, aardvark, and it's the rare mammals really. It's you know, if you've been to Africa and you've been on safari quite a few times and you're looking for something a little bit different, these dry areas of the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, combined with the makadikadi pans, the salt pans that you find in the northeastern part of the country, where you'll come across ground squirrels and suricats like here, the official name for meerkats. And these are beautiful and far less visited parts of the country. So if you're looking to get a little bit off the beaten track, and if you want to travel in March and April and get away from the cold in Blighty, this is a cracker. So there we go. But before we leave Botswana, so the makadikadi pans, the Central Kalahari, they're relatively flat, rolling grasslands, rolling scrub, far more scrub-like and barren in the pans. But in Central Kalahari, I had some fantastic cheetah sightings. And that leads us on to our next big cat, the fast one. So beautiful, beautiful creatures. They are classified separately, taxonomically, to lion and leopard, and that is due to a number of reasons. They are diurnal hunters rather than nocturnal. If you look at the tear stripe that you have running down either side of a cheetah's face, it is thought that potentially those black tear lines are absorbing light to enable them to hunt during the day, acting a little bit like sunglasses, taking the glare away from the sun. Obviously, we don't know why they look the way they do, much like I was talking about cheetah on Tuesday. We don't know that young cheetahs have that white hair to potentially mimic looking like a honey badger to protect them from predators, but that is the thought process. Now, cheetahs are very, very much the lowest in terms of the pecking order of cats. They are simply not built for power. You leave that to the lion, you leave that to the leopard. Where Africa is concerned, They are built for speed. Another solitary hunter. And when I think of cheetah sightings, yes, I've had some incredible cheetah sightings in Botswana at the Central Kalahari. I've also had great sightings in South Africa at Swalu, for example. But when I think of cheetah, and I think when a lot of people think of cheetah, they think of the plains of East Africa. And that's where we're going to go next as we go on to our fifth cat, the cheetah. So yes, it's those grasslands, you know, they slink through the grass, ears low, shoulders low, and they're looking for that abundance of prey that the East African plains carries. These are some of Nick Garbutt's images. I think they are beautiful, particularly with amongst the solanum, the flowers that you can see there in the foreground, the lilac flowers. And they're beautiful, beautiful. Every now and again, as you're driving through the grasslands of East Africa, you'll see a termite mound, and more often than not, there is a cheetah on the top of it, using that slight elevation in the landscape to enable them to look for prey. And when might you want to go to East Africa in order to find the cats? One of the key things that you can do to find the cats is to follow the Great Migration. In this instance, this cheetah that is hunting down this wildebeest, and you can see its young just to the left-hand side, the young wildebeest in the entire cyclical phenomenon that is the Great Migration, the young are born down in Tanzania in what is called the Ndutu area, and that generally happens February, March time. So when there is a plethora of young calves, whether they are wildebeest, whether they're zebra, whether they're other antelope, obviously the predators are going to go for the young, the old, and the infirm in the first instance. So if you get yourself to the Ndutu area, which if you can see my mouse is here, I'm just making a circle with it down here, just to the west, northwest of the Ngorongoro crater. That is where you need to be in our spring months, so February and March time. We offer a photographic trip to that area led by Nick Garbutt, and he goes out there at that time of year because where there are young, the predators will be there ready to take their fill. Now, if you've listened to my Tanzania talk previously, you will have seen me talk you through the Great Migration. Often we just associate the migration with the crossing of the Mara and the Grumeti rivers, which happens much later in the year. But obviously it's in an entire cyclical circle. So from the early months of the year when the young wildebeest are born, they then start making their way in a clockwise direction up through to the western parts of the Serengeti to be there in May and June. That's the crossing of the Grumeti River. They then continue up towards the Kenyan border and the Masai Mara. So over our summer months, July, August, that is when those river crossings are taking place. They then go into the Mara and then they head back down September, October time, crossing those rivers again in order to come back into Tanzania, make their way down the eastern side of the Serengeti, give birth once again, and then it all happens over and over and over. So with that in mind, depending on where or what time of year you wish to travel, that will depend on where we put you in Tanzania. So if you're traveling over the summer months, we will very much say that you want to be in the central parts of the Serengeti, moving up towards the north and the border with the Masai Mara, so that you can then potentially be in a position to watch those river crossings. If you're going in autumn, same thing, we'll just put you slightly east. And the beauty of staying in northern Tanzania is that a lot of the tents will move with the migration. So your accommodation options are basically, they're not fixed mobile camping operations as such, they will literally move with the migration. So, you will be in the optimum place at the right time in order to try and come across the multiple predators of which cheetah is just one, who will be there trying their luck. And look at the intent on this young one's face. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Now, the cats in this area give birth throughout the year. There's no set time when they actually birth. Cats have a very short gestation period. Lions have the longest at 10 weeks. If you come across mating cats, you will find that they will be together for 3 or 4 days, mating continuously. It's only through continual intercourse that the female will actually then ovulate, which is why they do it so frequently for so long. 10 weeks later, along come your cubs, and it's the cubs that are the most vulnerable to predation by other big cats, because they are trying to wipe out sources of competition. So cheetahs are vulnerable even as adults simply because of their size, but the cubs are even more vulnerable. And I think because of that, when you spend time with cheetah and with their cubs in particular, there's something incredibly, there's a real hope that you want these, you want these cubs to make it to adulthood. And therefore the time that you spend with them, not only because it can be absolutely endearing to watch again the bonds being strengthened between them, and the play, the rough and tumble that is just such a joyous part of watching big cats, but it makes it all the more poignant, I think. So, right, what we're going to do now is we're not done with cheetah, because Nick Joins was host on Tuesday night, and if I didn't make a mention of his beloved Namibia, in the same way if we hadn't gone for leopards in Zambia, I might not have a job tomorrow. Therefore, East Africa, yes, phenomenal for cheetah. Central Kalahari, good for cheetah. Parts of South Africa, they are all over the subcontinent, as are all the cats, but it is also worth a mention that Namibia has a very healthy population of cheetah, and you see them in a completely different context out there. I've been asked so many times by, when I was guiding or since I've been back, don't you ever get fed up of just going on safari again and again and again? No, absolutely not, because every encounter is different. The backdrop, the behavior, the cloudscape, the scenery, just to come across a cheetah just sitting there in the middle of the road in Etosha like here, just simply phenomenal. So basically our top tips for seeing big cats in Africa: Luangwa Valley for leopard, Botswana for lion, East Africa or Namibia for cheetah. But to be honest, if you've got a chance and you can get on a plane tomorrow, just do it. Take your luck, they're all there. You've just got to be in the right place at the right time. Now, you might suddenly wonder, why have we just jumped across to India? Well, this is because we have very, very exciting news. Cheetah were in India for quite a long time before we hunted them to extinction. But we've been advised that next year, the Endangered Wildlife Trust, which is a Southern African organisation, their intent, and this has all been cleared, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this is going to happen. Cheetah are going to be reintroduced to India. That is epic news, not only because they were there initially and through our actions they're now not, so let's redress the balance, but also it just means that the gene pool is going to be increased, which is great news. Obviously distribution, clearly it's good news, but it also means that if you go to India from next year, you have the chance to see cheetah, Asiatic lion, leopard, tiger, obviously, and snow leopard, all in one trip. Five big cats, all in one country. Can you imagine? Crikey, I might spontaneously combust. I think this is incredible, incredible news. So have we got a trip that will do that? Well, not yet, because the cheetahs aren't there yet, but we have got a trip that will give you 4 of those 5. And this is called India's Big Cats. It's a small group trip. We go out with a group size of 6, and we offer this trip every February. Now we're going to spend a bit of time looking at this map, so don't worry too much about it at this stage. But if you want to see 4 cats all on one holiday, you're going to join us in Delhi. From there, we are going to go to the far northern parts of India, to Ladakh. And Ladakh is home to snow leopards. We'll then come back through Delhi, and we will fly west over to Gujarat, and we will go to Gir, or Sasangir, as it is sometimes known, home to the only population of Asiatic lion left on the Indian subcontinent. From there, we head down to Nagaholi, which is down in the southern part of India. Phenomenal national park. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But there you have potential to see leopard and to see tiger. So for 4 big cats in one holiday with a maximum of 6 people, yes, please, that would be pretty rather marvelous. So when should you go to India on your big cat quest? The time to visit India is between November and April. Now, again, India you can go to throughout the year, but if it's the national parks that you want to go to, you don't actually have much choice in the matter. They close during the monsoon season, strictly off limits to anybody then, apart from rangers and researchers, and they reopen again for business every November through to April before the monsoon comes again. So it doesn't really matter where in India you are, that is pretty much for wildlife travel, that is when you're going to go. Now, we have to remind ourselves that India is a subcontinent. It is vast. So whether you are wanting to head over to see the Asiatic one-horned rhino, in which case you would head over to Kaziranga, that you can see over here on the right-hand side, that is a tiger reserve. You may well come across tigers. Whether you want to go to the Nepalese border, if any of you ever heard my colleague Sarah Malcolm talk about the Terai, which is on the Nepal-India border, tiger reserves, Dudhwa, then you can head to this northern part here. You've got Ranthambore, often combined with the Taj Mahal as the crow flies. It's not too far away. So you can do a bit of culture and a bit of wildlife. But what we tend to offer are the central Indian national parks, 2 states here. You've got MP or Madhya Pradesh, and you've also got Maharashtra. Oh my God, my mind's gone blank. I'll come back to it. It's where Tadabur is. It's gone completely and utterly blank, but okay, we'll move on. So you've got Bandhavgarh, Kana and Pench in the central Indian, Maharashtra, that's it. Thank you very much. Well done, Brain, for keeping up. And Tadabur. And then down in the south, you have Nagaholi National Park. Now, in terms of the differences between the two, Nagaholi, you access through Bangalore or Bengaluru as was. It's about a 5-hour drive from Bangalore, and we tend to offer week-long stays in Nagaholi, solely staying within Nagaholi National Park. The central Indian reserves, they are 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours drive apart from each other, but we do really recommend that if you're going to one, why not go to a second or go to a third as well, just so that you can see a real good cross-section of what central India has to offer. So in terms of when you go again, we know that the season is November through to April. Now, if you go in November, December, which was the time of my last visit out to India, the bush is still really quite green. And that enables a wonderful contrast in your photography. Now, we've just launched a new Kana photo safari. And when I stayed at the lodge that we'll be using, Flame of the Forest, one of the guides there is a professional photographer, and we got talking, which is where this idea came from, about doing a dedicated photographic safari. And he actually showed me some of his pictures that were taken November, December time, when the parks first open. And although it may be harder to find the tigers at that time of year because of the dense of the vegetation and the lushness of the vegetation, but the contrast in his photos of the green and the vivid orange was quite astounding. So, you know, if you have the chance to go in November, December time, this, although you're at the start of the season, it's in no way a dud time to travel. As the season progresses, the bush tends to thin out slightly. And this is one of Brett Charman's photos taken down in Nagaholi. You can again just see the contrast between the green and the amount of vegetation, and that stunning leopard there, particularly when he decided to come down the tree. What a shot. I love the agility of leopards. They're just phenomenal creatures. And then, you know, this is really what we're looking for, isn't it? This is the money shot. This is the big gun. We want to see tiger. That, of course, that's what you want to do. Beautiful shots here. Some of these are Nick Garbutt's, some of them are Brett's. This is a series taken by Nick Garbutt in Tadaba. And if you speak to Nick about India, he will invariably mention the mornings in India, that the wonderful sounds that are coming out of the forests. And there's a wonderful mist that often just covers the ground first thing in the morning. And he came across this relatively young pair of cubs just having fun. You know, I just think that's a beautiful, beautiful sequence. And then as the heat of the day comes into play, particularly as you move into March and into April and the end of the season, the bush is going to be very dry. And you know, the colors again will be quite different in terms of the photo element of things. But what's it actually like going on safari in India? You tend to go out 3 people to a jeep maximum with us if you're traveling as part of a group. In Africa, you're often going to have 6 people to a jeep on the 3 tiered seats that you're probably all quite familiar with. But in India, it will be 3 maximum. And they don't use radios on the vehicles. Some of the guides do use their mobile phones to keep in touch with each other. But there are no radios, so it's generally far more of a sort of pure experience. You drive along, you turn off the engine, you listen to the sounds of the forest, you listen for the sounds of muntjac, of chital, of sambar, of langur, and if you hear the alarm calls, you drive in the direction at which they are. And if you get lucky, then obviously, you know, brilliant, you get shots like this. Now, langur, for example, have different alarm calls for leopard than they do for tiger. Their behavior will be different as well. General panic if it's a leopard. If it's a tiger, they will take to the trees because the tigers generally don't climb, whereas of course leopards do, hence the general state of disarray and complete and utter panic. But there's a supporting cast in India. The bird life is quite simply beautiful. You know, peacocks. Who would have thought they would just be flying around as they do? Jungle fowl like you've got here. And of course, this is your Rudyard Kipling, you know, personified, so to speak. So the Jungle Book, the cast is there. You know, I want to see a Baloo. I would love to see Baloo, the sloth bear, as you've got here. Central India, you won't find wild elephant in the central reserves. Go to Nagaholi and you will. So that's one of the differences between going on safari in central India versus Nagahol. You might come across the odd working elephant, as I did in a number of the central Indian reserves, but you won't come across wild elephant there. You may come across dhole. This is Indian wild dog. They're usually not particularly still. They're fleet like the wind, and they're forever on the run, much like their African wild dog cousins. Bagheera. Now, who doesn't want to see Bagheera? Crikey. The night that I landed in Nagpur and went to Tadaba, I got to the lodge at about 9 o'clock at night. I had a little bit of dinner and I went straight to bed because I'd come straight off a flight from London. On the sightings board, when I got there, a black leopard had been seen that evening. And you get very irregular sightings in Pench and in Tadaba of black or properly melanistic leopards. However, Nagaholi has a far more reliable black leopard male that is seen and who has been seen for the last few years. He's in his prime, he's mating, he's fighting with other males, but all the way through lockdown, we have been getting repeated reports that he is still active in Nagaholi National Park. So the news that India is issuing tourist visas again for 30 days from mid-November is music to our ears, because Nagaholi is probably our most popular small group trip. We go out with 6 people. There's, as I've said before, it's not just the big cats. So you've got the chance to see tiger, to see regular leopard. Hopefully you'll come across this guy, but obviously no guarantees. But you have the Asiatic elephant as well. And you have 7 nights in Nagaholi, traveling as part of the small group, going out on safaris in vehicles like this. So here you do go out in a group of 6. Now, the only reason I'm really mentioning the vehicle here is because we can incorporate Nagaholi as part of a tailor-made itinerary. If you go tailor-made, you will either be going out in a canter, which can take far more people, but there's not a guarantee of going out just 6 to a vehicle like there is with our group. So that's something to be aware of. So we have more flexibility with our group trip. You go out in a smaller group on safari as well, and they very, very strictly regulate the number of vehicles out at any one time in Nagaholi. But so India, really, you know, crikey, it's doing well. If we can get cheetah there next year, as well as all of these other big cats, whether you go to Gir, whether you go to the Central Reserves, whether you go to Dudwa or Kaziranga or down to Nagaholi in the south, pretty much it's got everything. So we've got another cat to cover, and we are moving into the extremes here, into the high Himalaya. We're talking 4,000 meters high. That's how high we're going. We may well come across ibex like you've got here, but obviously what we're really looking for is the owner of these footprints here. We're looking for snow leopard. And the first time I saw this image, I couldn't take my eyes off the moon. And I thought, oh, that's a lovely landscape shot. That's incredible, very atmospheric, the jagged peaks of the Himalaya. And then I realized there's a snow leopard in it. So on here, central right-hand side, look at that. Talk about how these cats have just adapted to almost every environment on the planet. I mean, yowzers. So this is one of Nick Garbutt's images, and he runs trips out here to go and look for the snow leopards. We can also do you tailor-made trips, and we can build it in as part of our big cats itinerary that I talked about right at the start, where you can see Asiatic lion, tiger, leopard, and also snow leopard. Oh, just like that, or we hope that you'll see. So these incredible creatures, I mean, crikey, they are something else. You're not always going to get this close to them. It's very important to say that. You're going to spend a lot of time from vehicles, looking out through scopes, scanning valleys in the distance. You want a 600mm lens, but you might just get lucky and actually be able to photograph them from the lodge. You never know. Nick spends 11 nights at the lodge. Otherwise, we can do tailor-mades whereby you spend 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many nights you want to there. But what it is important to do is acclimatize. So from Delhi, we fly you to Leh, the capital of Ladakh, LEH. That lies at 3,500 meters above sea level. We usually spend 2 or 3 nights in Leh, just getting used to that altitude before we then go up to the Uli Valley, which is then around 4,000 meters. So it's pretty high. This is not going to be a trip for everybody necessarily, but if you want to, and if you're willing to spend a lot of time looking, you will do some tracking on foot, but most of the time it will be scopes. It will be stopping and starting in your vehicles, scanning the valleys and just seeing how you get on, looking for signs of this magnificent, magnificent beast. Now, if you'd like to try and see snow leopards, but you don't particularly have a head for heights, or you are concerned about traveling at altitude that high, well, then let's go somewhere completely different. We're going east, we're going to Mongolia. And every August, we run a trip that will not only look for snow leopards at a much, much lower altitude, but you go out in the height of summer, so you're not having to deal with the extremes of cold. But you've also got the chance to come across some of the smaller cats like Pallas's cat, Eurasian wild cat, and also Eurasian lynx. So our Mongolia trip runs every August. That is another option that you wouldn't probably necessarily think of off the top of your head, but that's got some pretty good cat potential. So last but most definitely not least, we're going to go to Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is, again, Jungle Book territory. You have sloth bears. You don't have tiger, but you do have sloth bear, and there are elephants, and there are leopards. And of course, big cats are here for us to discuss. Now, traditionally, if anybody was going on safari in Sri Lanka, we used to send them to Yala National Park, which is down on the southeastern part of the country, highlighted here. Now, Yala, at one point, was getting an awful lot of press in things like Wanderlust, in the Times, the Telegraph, the weekend travel supplements, as one of the most foolproof places to go on the planet if you were looking for leopard. So it got an awful lot of press, and a lot of people started to visit Yala, to the point where we have at times had feedback that there were far too many jeeps, not very well policed, and that just pretty much altogether just a little bit too busy. So we started going to a place on the outskirts of Yala. Now you'll have to really excuse my pronunciation here, but called Lunagum Vihara, which was attached to Yala, but a much quieter part of the park, and that is what we would suggest. We launched our Sri Lanka off the beaten track itinerary a couple of years ago, and we actually have a group departing at the middle of next month, which is super exciting, and they will spend 4 nights at Wilpatu, which is north of Colombo and has just come up there. Now, Wilpatu is a wilder area, plenty of sloth bear, plenty of leopards, so our fingers are firmly crossed for some great big cat sightings. But also in the central and eastern parts of the country, our off the beaten track itinerary now goes to some wonderful camps, and we very much hope that you're going to get leopard sightings akin to this. I mean, look at those eyes. Oh, love them, love them, love them. Look at his eyes, and look at his paws. He's a big boy. So that pretty much is going to wrap up tonight's talk. I'm just going to do a little time check. Oh, it's still 8:23. How have I talked for that long? I'm so sorry, but I'm going to finish with how I started on Tuesday. And I'm basically going to say, whether you're looking to go and find the social one, the swimming one, the fast one, the black one, the sure-footed one, my most wanted one, the elusive one, or the big one, big cats are everywhere, and we go everywhere. So if you want to go and find some cats, then just let us know, because we are more than happy to talk to you about cats, as long as you want to talk about them. So there we go. So thank you to everybody who has provided images for Tuesday and tonight's presentation. And it's not an exhaustive list of what we do and where we can go, but hopefully that's just given you a good taster of what we can offer and what we think are our big cat hotspots.
Blimey, that's amazing. Thank you very much.
I love them.
Where should I go first? Then.
Where shall you go first? Oh, it's got to be Zambia, isn't it? Of course you're going to go straight back to Zambia. I was quite surprised when I said Patagonia so quickly, because I was like, no, hang on, I want to go to Africa.
Wow, there you are, you see. Hey, that was really wonderful. Gosh, thank you so much. That's really, really good.
Cool.
So a couple of questions that have been posed, but first things first, I'm going to tell you something which excuse me, I'm just looking down at my phone because and I can't show this to you, but there was the most wonderful email that was sent to us during the course of your presentation by Jackie, who sent Sue a photograph of her cat standing on her desk looking at your first image. I've forgotten the title, but the title. But big cats with Helen and Bryon, and there's a little cat looking at the screen. Fantastic!
Oh, that's wonderful.
One of the best photos of cats I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
No, that was absolutely wonderful. Hey, somebody asked when you were talking about the Best of Botswana trip. There've been the 1-2 questions about that, not least of which was on the Best of Botswana trip. Is there a reasonable likelihood of seeing wild dog?
Yes, there is. We do have a trip in Botswana that goes out specifically looking for wild dogs, and that's also a mobile camping trip, again with the wonderful Disho. So wild dogs tend to den in Botswana at a similar sort of time, and when they've got pups, they will always go back and feed those pups and not take them on the hunts until they're old enough. So if you go sort of May, June time, that's a great time to go, or April, May, June, it's a good time to go looking for dogs. But Botswana does have a good dog population. I've seen them there. I've seen dogs in central Kalahari as well. So yes, you have got you've got every chance of seeing them. Of course, no guarantees, but you've got every chance. You've got to be there. You know, why not?
Great. Thank you very much for that. That's very good and very good to know. I think it's probably worth mentioning at this point in relation to Africa. I did mention right back at the very beginning that Brett is going to be going out to Zambia on leading the photographic trips. He's going
with Emma, yeah.
And of course, for anybody who is keen to get away, I'm just looking at my notes here. For anyone who's keen to get away, we have still got a couple of places left.
We have indeed.
On the Safaris to Luangwa on 2 departures specifically, on the 13th of November departure and the 27th of November departure. We've got availability. Not many spaces, just a couple, but it's worth mentioning that.
And you've got good chance of wild dog there as well.
Very good chance.
As you always say, that the numbers in South Luangwa are increasing steadily.
Well, it's worth saying that the numbers of wild dogs in South Luangwa National Park is now known to have the greatest population of wild dogs of any of the national parks in Africa.
It's like I fed that to you, Chris Breen. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Amazing. We're a very good public.
You should work for the Zambian Tourist Board.
Well, I think maybe I should. That's very good. Maybe I am the Zambian Tourist Board. Who knows? Hey, so that was that one. It's also worth saying that in respect of India, I think you mentioned it, of course, that India's opening up again. They're starting to allow tourist visas to be issued from 15th of November.
Yeah. Well, they're issuing them now for entry.
I beg your pardon.
From the 15th.
Quite correct. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's quite right. Issuing them now for entry from the 15th of November onwards. And of course, we've got one of our Nagaholi departures to potentially go and see to go to Nagaholi with a very good chance of seeing black leopard, hopefully.
Yeah. There's another amazing trip actually that is also one that's very high on my own wish list, which is and that's going out in the first week of December, that I know we've got space on, and that's our Northwest India rare mammals trip.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
that's got things like striped hyena, but if you are a big cat enthusiast, there is one place in India, in Rajasthan, called Jawai, Jawai, and it has got the most incredible leopards that live in caves, and we go to that on the Northwest Rare Mammals trip for India. So if you're free from the 4th of December, I think it is, that would be an epic trip, because you'd get big cats plus also other rare mammals, black buck and things like that. So if you are looking to get away this side of Christmas, that's another option as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, we are now just coming into prime time in India, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm free.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting on the plane before you. So, that's great. I love the idea of India's big 5 cats. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The story with the cheetah. That's fantastic. That's a real coup. Really,
I was super excited. So they're gonna take a population from a South African private reserve and take them over, and they're going to be in central India, in MP, Madhya Pradesh. I do know the name of the reserve, but it's kind of just being kept a bit hush hush, I think, for now. But if once they are established, that would be phenomenal, you know, because no other country in the world would be able to offer 5 cats in one country.
No, that's very well, and 5 very impressive cats.
Yeah.
No, I quite agree. Warren has posed a question about the Indian park authorities. Not sure if you can see that on Q&A, Helen, and the way that they allocate routes. So he's put here: is it true that the Indian park authorities will allocate which routes are to be used within the reserves during any day?
Yeah, basically you can't put in a request in advance for where you go. So it depends on the park. Some parks have one-way systems. So once you go down a route, you have to keep following that same route. But the majority of parks have what they call zones. And the zones basically are predetermined, and the permits are sort of allocated on the day of arrival, and you don't know which zone you're going to get in advance. Now, you know, I was told in advance just to go in with very realistic expectations where tiger sightings are concerned. I was told by a number of clients who'd been maybe twice to India before they saw their first tiger. And I was incredibly lucky. I had 2 tiger sightings on my first time to the Central Indian National Parks. But you are undoubtedly working very hard for those sightings because of the lack of radios. But that, in many respects, makes it a more rewarding experience.
Yeah.
So it is the constant drive a little bit, turn the engine off, listen for warning signs, listen for alarm calls. Turn the engine on, drive towards them, turn it off, listen again. So, you know, I think, yeah, going in with realistic expectations. But if you go somewhere like Nagaholi, in general, the sightings there are very, very good. And you've then got the added bonus of potentially coming across that melanistic leopard, who is a beautiful individual by all accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Helen, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think, as it is now cruising towards 25 to 9, that
sorry.
that's fine. It's been a lovely evening. I suggest that maybe we call it a day there. Can you put up your final slide, because we showed...
Oh, of course. Sorry, I always forget this. There we are.
Well, I was going to point out, of course, as we always do, we try to point out the special offer, booking offer of £100 per person off your next booking, but also the 2 next talks that we have. One which is Discover the Serengeti Migration, which is being done by the most wonderful Nick Garbett, great friend of yours and mine, and no doubt lots of people who are on board here. And then on the 3rd of November, Discover Wildlife Photography, being done by the great Brett Sharman, who is also a wonderful friend of yours and mine, and undoubtedly many of the people on board here. So those are the next 2 talks we've got coming up. thank you once again. Thank you very much to everybody who has been attending our webinar this evening. We really appreciate the time you take to enjoy these events with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.